The last mile is effectively talking about the content supply chain. And it's basically saying, look, you went through all this effort to promote your brand. You spent a lot of money promoting your brand. You spent a lot of money acquiring customers. You spent a ton of money on your MarTech stack, ton of money acquiring data, ton of money on your AI decisioning tools, and a ton of money on the people of the team. But then when it comes to the actual content that you're using to send to me on these CRM channels, you didn't really pay any attention to it at all. It's like you spent all this effort and you kind of failed at the last mile. That's what I think about. And we've all experienced this. So the last mile, the content supply chain, which is an expression that's been going around now for a couple of years, is effectively made up of 4 elements. So data, which is who, decisioning, what, creative, how, and distribution, where and when.
Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Daniel Head, the former CEO of Jacquard and former CRO at Braze, and he spearheaded the company's global growth and led its 2021 IPO. He's currently an advisor to several companies in the tech and manufacturing sectors. Daniel brings over 30 years of experience building revenue teams. He has got the rare ability to connect data-driven strategy with creative execution or operations, and more importantly, execution that actually moves the needle. One of his colleagues best described him as a go-getter with no-nonsense execution, someone who knows how to close massive deals with right approach, and that's exactly the mindset behind today's strategy. Stick around because we are breaking down how to push fast personalization plateaus in Braze. We'll cover how to maintain your brand voice across every channel and region, and how to build a creative operations that keep pace with real-time messaging. If you have been wondering why your Braze investment isn't delivering the ROI or is not giving the outcome, it's capable of. And so this conversation is for you, where Daniel will give us or walk us through how to get the best out of Braze. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you very much, and good to meet you.
Yep, great to meet you. So the first point or area I would love to start with is the segmentation, right, which is the crucial part of overall lifecycle marketing. Let's start with the basics, right? Many marketers still don't know what segmentation really is and how it's different from decisioning. When you were leading Braze through its growth, I'm sure you would have reviewed and seen with first hand with the equation of fit, right? On how personalization could be leveraged. Would you love to share with our viewers the difference between segmentation and decisioning in simple terms, right? And why it matters to marketers to understand?
Yeah, sure. So let's see if we can unpack that in an order. I suppose first of all that businesses have a lot of data. In fact, even before that, brands have done a lot of work and spent a lot of money to earn the trust of their customers. So when we all say yes to tracking my movements, or yes to cookies, or yes to opting into whatever, we're trusting a brand with our data. And people do trust brands, and people want to trust brands, but people have an expectation of how their data is going to be used. And so the reason why we do that is because we would like a more relevant experience with the brand. And so this is about trust and data and relevance. And we as consumers, we also know what tech is capable of. So I know what tech's capable of. I trust you, the brand, and you've got my data. So go for it. Be relevant. But we all know most of the time brands struggle to use that data to truly be relevant. So segmentation effectively is partly, it's an exercise in trying to be more relevant, isn't it? So give me the shows that I'm interested in, the types of clothes and the brands that I'm interested in, the experiences that I like, when I like them, on the channel that I typically use. One of the things that as the father of 4 children that are all at university, I say to I say to brands, look, my kids don't open my emails; they're not opening yours. So and businesses that have been through the change from sort of legacy email service provider, legacy email tools to modern customer engagement platforms, they've done more than upgraded their tech. That is a mindset shift from channel centricity to customer centricity. And what that really means is rather than coming to work every day as a CRM professional and saying, right, what emails are we sending this week? It's like, well, hang on, who's to say that email is the right thing to use? Maybe email is not the right channel for this particular use case. And one of the ones I always say is like, if you're promoting pizza, 10% off pizza to folks watching Love Island on TV on a Friday night, don't send them an email. So is email the right channel or not for the use case? And is email the right channel or not for the individual based on their preferences? So segmentation is all about trying to be more relevant. It's taken all that data that we've gained permission to use and trying to break it down. So preferences, timing, but also some intelligence. Maybe you're going to talk to me differently if I've ordered lots from your brand and I'm a loyal user, and maybe I'm close to lapsing. Maybe I'm somebody that's uninstalled the app. And so segmentation is going to enable me to talk to different people in a more relevant way based on their relationship with the brand. The problem with segmentation, even with tools like Braze that are very good at segmenting data quickly, is, well, how many segments are you going to manage? I mean, you've got lots of different products, lots of different situations, lots of different use cases, and really every one of your customers is different. So how many segments are you going to put together? And it becomes very laborious and time consuming to set segments up and deprecate segments and decide which ones you're going to use. It's just very labor intensive. And of course, that is what machines are very good at doing. And so this is where AI decisioning comes in. And AI decisioning, which is a category, you might have heard of reinforcement learning AI as well, but so machine learning, reinforcement learning, AI decisioning, that's where I put Often Fit. And so there are technologies like Often Fit, like AMP, like High Touch, I think Databricks, lots of other vendors getting into it. And these are all companies that have evolved out of 20, 30-year-old technology called Next Best Action. So Next Best Action, NBA, was something that came into call centers. And when I would phone up and say, a problem with this or a problem with that, the call center agent would say, okay, right, we've resolved this. Are you also familiar with this? Would you be interested in that? And Next Best Action would pop up on the call center agent's screen, and then that would enable them to promote something else. Next Best Action has now been massively evolved for much greater scale with AI decisioning. And what AI decisioning can say is, based on the profile of the individual and their preferences, this is the right product recommendation with this buffer at this particular time. And it can do it effectively at one-to-one scale. And the more and more and more it is used, the better and better and better it's going to get, because it's about reinforcement learning and training of these and training of the algorithms and the multi-arm bandits that make those decisions. So AI decisioning is, on one hand, a logical step to get much more relevant segmentation that is therefore much more manageable. But it's also an architectural change, the technology that makes that possible, because we're no longer necessarily going to have to go manually create these segments. In fact, we've got greater horsepower and engineering doing that for us.
Yep. So yeah, that was a great insight, Daniel, where AI decisioning is always going to play a critical role, right? And how segmentation is something which marketers are missing out, right, on leveraging and getting the best out of it. But still, one thing which you already mentioned, the next best action, and then connected to that, what I would love to discuss further is around the last mile problem, right? I'm sure you would have heard it multiple times, right? And even the brands invest in great data, targeting, segmentation, message, but everything, whatever they invest in, right, everything often ends up being generic, right? Nothing which is expected to give some actual results. You have called this the last mile problem, right? What does that last mile really mean, and why do so many brands struggle with this particular scenario?
Yeah, so the last mile is effectively talking about the content supply chain. And it's basically saying, look, you went through all this effort to promote your brand. You spent a lot of money promoting your brand. You spent a lot of money acquiring customers. You spent ton of money on your MarTech stack, ton of money acquiring data, ton of money on your AI decisioning tools, and a ton of money on the people of the team. But then when it comes to the actual content that you're using to send to me on these CRM channels, you didn't really pay any attention to it at all. It's like you spent all this effort and you kind of failed at the last mile. That's what I think about. And we've all experienced this. If we look at above the line advertising and the billboards and the TVs and so on, we know that so much time, effort, craft, money goes into the language and the messaging and above the line advertising. But when we look at exact same brands and how they're talking to us on email or on push notifications, SMS, these below the line channels, most of the time it's rubbish. It's repetitive. It's generic language. It is not professional. It's not particularly on brand because every brand is saying, it doesn't matter whether you're in pizza or clothing or dating, everyone's saying the same thing. It is probably not even going to be my preferred language. You know, what a shame to miss out on that the last mile of this. So the last mile of the content supply chain, which is an expression that's been going around now for a couple of years, is effectively made up of 4 elements. So data, which is who, decisioning, what, creative, how, and distribution, where and when. So the last mile part is effectively creative, which is how. So you've got all my data. You know exactly what I like, when I like it, how often I interact. You've got tons of my data. Decisioning, you could use that for power segmentation. You could use that to power AI decisioning. Anyway, your algorithm's going to work out what is relevant for me, when it's relevant for me, where it's relevant for me. Skip to the end, distribution. You know what my preferred channels are. You know the best channels to use based on the use case, and you know when to message me. So if I'm in South Korea, you're not going to send me an email, you're going to send me a cacao. Okay. So you know this. So the last piece is the creative. And that is to say, language has always been important. How you say something is important. Why is it that people open messages? Well, I open a message on my email or my phone because of the brand. And if I hadn't given the brand permission to email me, or if I hadn't installed the app, then it would be like a stranger. So there's a relationship with the brand, and I've given them permission to message me like a friend. What the brand has to say is interesting to me. Where they say it is interesting to me, but how they say it is also why I would open that message. Is it compelling or not? Is it immediately relevant or not? Are they talking to me based on who I am? So just, if just use some sporting goods manufacturers, maybe women who like Pilates use different language than men who like rugby. Maybe Gen Z women who like Pilates speak different language to boomers who like rugby. Maybe Gen Z women in Denmark talk differently about Pilates. And then let's not just be an echo chamber and assume all Gen Z women in Denmark speak the same way about Pilates. And let's face it, just because they're in Denmark doesn't mean to say that their preferred language is Danish. Some of them like emojis, some of them don't. So how we talk to people is important. And guess what? We've got this new thing now called large language models, which effectively is giving you an infinite amount of content and copy. But the content supply chain is like a production line. You've got your data, you've got your decisioning, you've got your creative engines, and that's not just language, that's imagery and rich media as well. And then you've got your distribution pipes. And what brands are just figuring out is really what are the components and how do you wire them up so that you get efficient throughput through that supply chain. And of course, the ultimate promise of this is true relevance at one-to-one scale. That's the promise of this. And we can get into that.
Now you raised about LLM, which is always currently the talk of the town, right? AI. It always gives the option, too many options of copy and content, right? But we miss out on the important part, which is the creative, the how, right? On what you would be communicating. Now you also spoken about the content supply chain as a way to solve these gaps. Most companies spend big money on data and channels, expanding their reach, right? But then neglect the creative layer. How to explain this idea to teams, and where do you see brands most often go wrong?
So many brands do this. I mean, most brands will say that they have a brand voice. Certainly if they're a mid-market or an enterprise brand, they will definitely have a brand voice. They will have brand guidelines. They will have brand style guides. They will have creatives and copywriting teams that will be the custodian of that style guide. They will use and deploy agencies that are employed to represent the black brand through these guidelines. So this is going to be in place, and the reason why copywriting and the reason why creative industries exist is because how you say something is important. So to only look at decisioning or segmentation without the creative is to admit something like, so if I was to say to you, do you think it's possible to say 10% off so well you don't have to say 20% off? Okay, that is possible. Because if you're using data well, in a compelling way, with language that resonates with the individual, at the right time, with the right offer, you won't have to say 20% off as much. You can say 10% off instead, or maybe no discount. So CFO is going to love this, because this is basically saying there's no need for bad marketing to just give the product away. How about you do some really good marketing instead, but don't give the product away. Talk to the people how they want to be spoken to instead. So these brand guides and style guides and language guides exist anyway because the brand voice is important. But the reality is that, several things. One is the brand guide is probably not sufficient to steer a machine. So if you and I were copywriters and creatives and we went to go and work for a brand, maybe you've been there 20 years and I've just joined and I've read the style guide and I say, okay, here's the messaging I'm going to put out on SMS and email subject lines. And you say, yeah, that matches the style guide, but we wouldn't say that. And I'll say, well, how would I know that? There's nothing it's compliant. You say, yeah, but we wouldn't really say that. And of course, in order to train a machine, you need to give it instructions. Everyone knows now how important prompting is. To get prompting right, it's rubbish in, rubbish out. So we have to understand that machines can do a much better job of this at scale. This is just about automation. This is what machines are built for. But you need to give them good instructions. And the other thing is to then understand the evolution of roles, because maybe people went through copywriting school, but maybe they didn't want to write push notifications for a living. So there are many reasons why machines are meant to do this work. There are many reasons why they should do this work, but there are many reasons why brands are struggling to get the machines to do this work. And that is partly technically, and that is partly because of the executive sponsorship for these projects. It's partly because of reluctance and fear. It's partly because they don't have the right KPIs. But this is 2025. It's nearly 2026. Do we really think in 10 years' time that all of those messages that we get on below the line channels are going to be written by people? No, I don't think that's going to be the case in 10 years' time. I bet you don't. I bet most people we speak to don't. Okay, so if not in 10 years, we're at 5 years' time. Maybe we'll be making a lot of progress. Okay, so 2 years' time. No, it's going to take us a while to get there. Okay, so somewhere between 2 and 5 years time, brands are going to solve this problem of getting machines to do the messaging. And that's just not just what, but it's also how. And that is going to unlock all the data they've been collecting for years so that we can be truly relevant and personalized.
Yep, that's an interesting take on how things are going to change with machines coming in the near future. When we are talking about machines, right? Many times we as a brand take customers, our subscribers as a machine and try to send too many things via messages, right? And which ultimately results into message fatigue, right? Uh, a lot of team sees a dip in engagement, and the default response is to send more and more messages, right? But instead of fixing the actual problem, it usually leaves customers feeling tired of hearing from the brand, right? Why does this fatigue really happen? And what's the smarter ways to keep people engaged, in your opinion?
Fatigue is a huge problem and a huge waste of money. I mean, pumping out messaging, just spray and pray without regard for relevance, both in terms of what and how you message, it costs money. Every time you send emails, they tend to cost money. There's a CPM attached to them. Even if you're just sending push notifications, you're probably going to be consuming data credits or something like that. It's expensive for the brand. It's easier than ever to opt out. In fact, opting in is not the default. We're sort of opted out and then we have to opt in. And people's appetite for that is very small. So, it's so easy now just to hit that kind of exclamation mark on your Gmail and it says, is it spam or do you want to unsubscribe and mark as spam? It's so easy now. Yeah. And again, so brands spend a lot of money acquiring users. Why would you burn them? And fatigue really is just saying the same thing over and over and over again. In fact, there are many lawsuits out there where brands do this very carelessly. They will say, 50% off today only. And then the very next day it will be another 50% off and another one. And there's lots of lawsuits about that. So this is costly in terms of tech, in terms of data, in terms of burning your acquisition spend, in terms of burning customer reputation. It's ineffective. It causes brand damage. I mean, okay, I can't think of many reasons to do it, right? So don't do it. And if you Google or ChatGPT some of the numbers, like what impact does message fatigue have on retention and engagement, you'll get a whole bunch of stats there, big percentages on the effect. So you can figure out there's some really big ROI to be had by not doing this. But again, this is something that is part of the mindset shift. Once people realize that the business is engagement and retention, it's not just today's email campaign. They're probably measuring the wrong thing if a brand thinks that pumping out messaging is the goal of the day.
So in my understanding, brands always think about making sure that they are connected to their customers and subscribers every time, right? And they always tend to overdo things, right? Where they try to overdo the amount of messages. They try to overdo in terms of bombarding the same message across the channels, email, SMS, push, and in-app, right? So their objective is not to miss out anything. They don't want to they are always afraid about losing customers and subscribers. So they always try to make sure that they try to leverage maximum opportunities which is possible, but ultimately which results into message fatigue. When you talked about personalization, right, and decisioning, still many of the lifecycle marketers and brands think personalization as a merge tag, right, which is a common understanding, right? But you have been very clear that this isn't real personalization, and obviously it is not, right? What does true personalization actually look like to you, and why do so many brands struggle to deliver it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not merge tags. I mean, let's forget about the fact for the moment, or put aside the fact that merge tags often go wrong. We've all received the dear first name email. Put that aside. But let's say you and I like golf or pizza. Okay. The way that you respond to language, Shintan, is not the same that I will. I don't know if you've got kids, but if you did have kids, my kids would certainly respond to different language than I would, you know. So this idea that saying this weekend 10% off golf, dear Dan, this weekend 10% off golf. Just because they've got first name and sport preference doesn't mean to say that this week, is that the best way to say 10% off golf? I mean, you're in a different location to me. Maybe I know the weather for this weekend and it's going to be tipping down with rain. I don't want to buy a golf kit this weekend. But maybe if the weather was good, it could set, I mean, basic weather personalization. This has been around for years, but it could be, you know, looking sunny in West London this weekend. Make sure you've got the right kit. You know, that's golf, that's weather, that's more relevant to me. And then maybe if it's my son who wants to play golf, maybe he wants a couple more emojis in there. So there is an infinite, I mean, poets, writers, copyright, language and imagery and is art. It's a rich canvas of communication tools for messaging to people. So to say, dear first name, you like product is the best way to say that is absolute nonsense. It's neglectful. Okay. It's not personalization. But does it make a difference? And I've heard this so many times. Brands will say to me, yeah, Dan, but by the way, using first name, data's shown that using someone's name actually results in less engagement. I'll put that there. But anyway, brands will say, but yeah, Dan, saying golf to this person and yoga to that person is better than just saying sport. Okay, yeah, but it's 2025. Really? Is that as good as marketing can be in 2025? I'd be like, no, that's setting the bar too low. And if a brand has only just discovered that you like yoga and you like golf and that makes a difference, I'll be like, goodness gracious. I mean, okay, you're 10 years behind. That's the problem. At least 10 years behind. So what is personalization to me? Personalization, and the industry's been talking about one-to-one communications now for a long time, over a decade, one-to-one. Now, so what does one-to-one mean? One-to-one means we're going to be talking to you about what you're interested in the way that is most relevant to you. The language you speak, the imagery you like, the channels you prefer, in a way that is timed for optimal relevance. And you alone will get that message because you are an individual. So personalization, this true sense, one-to-one is, well, I've got 10 million MAU. That's 10 million different ways of saying something. Okay? Now, let's not assume we're all that different. So I don't think we need 10 million ways of saying something for 10 million people. And you only have to walk down the street after a new trend's appeared on Instagram to realize that people like to be part of a tribe, right? So it's not 10 million messages for 10 million people. Is it 1 million messages for 10 million people? That's each message is going to 10 people. Okay, let's not say we're even that different. Okay, 500,000 messages to 10 million people. So everyone is going to 2 million people. Is that right? Okay, let's say it's that. Fine. So you go into your AI and you say, I need 500,000 ways of saying this weekend 10% off golf. And the AI goes, okay, fine. There you go. There's 500,000 ways of saying it. And you go, well, what am I going to do with that? So personalization is a goal. It's a vision. It's an objective. We should speak to people in the most relevant, personal way based on who they are. We have to understand them so we can talk to them. This is what we do in our interpersonal relationships. But in order to do that, we A, have to get the right machines in place, and B, we have to learn to trust the output of machines. Marketers need to know that this is no different than manufacturing. When you put a machine on a factory floor and it makes turbine blades for planes, it can make hundreds of thousands of blades an hour. But even though they are turbine blades for jet engines, they're not all individually checked. When the machine is first installed, they might make 10 and they check all of them. Then they might make 100 and check all of them. But eventually, they're not checking all of them. And there is a global quality control standard called Six Sigma, which is 3.4 defects per million. This is what marketers need to start thinking about for marketing ops, which is if we're going to have creative language, creative image, creative video products and offers coming out of the machine algorithms, we need to learn to trust the output at the same scale that machines operate in factories. This is just machines operating in marketing departments. And if businesses have the right KPIs and the right sponsorship and the right vision and the right objective to get the machines doing this work, they will.
Yep. It's rightly said that Personalization is way beyond that merge text, right, which normally every one of us or many brands are still looking into. And Personalization is about knowing about your audience more in detail, right? Each one of them, the one-on-one personalization, which is going there in the market from over a decade, as you mentioned. Now, at your current organization, you are building tools like language and neural, right? That are helping brands leverage AI while preserving the unique voice and ensuring compliance. So I'm sure you've seen leaders worrying about losing brand voice or encountering risk with compliance as AI becomes more prevalent in marketing. So how should leaders think about those risks, and what's the right way to set guardrails from the start, making sure that AI is not hampering your data or not taking away the data from you?
So if we just talk about, I think we need to talk about KPIs, and I think we need to talk about the vision and sponsorship first. So one of the things, in fact, I'll talk about the latter one first. So we've all heard people like, we've heard Elon Musk talk about the autopilot in Teslas for a long time. And people would say, the press would jump on every instance of the autopilot knocking an old man over in the road or something like that. And they'll say, that's terrible. The autopilot failed. The car drove into that old man crossing the road. What Elon will say, and you know what I'm going to say, he will say, yeah, but it will run into that old man crossing the road less than people will. And that's the Six Sigma 3.4 defects per million. It doesn't mean zero. It doesn't mean zero. It doesn't mean zero cases. It means in the global quality control standard, it's about as good as anything can possibly get. So in the context of marketing, is it possible, because we know LLMs can hallucinate, even though the machinery and architecture around the LM output can get very, very good now at keeping it on guide rails, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The first thing is to have the vision that there are some jobs that machines should do that people no longer need to do. Like I said, do you really think humans should write push notifications in 10 years' time? No. Okay. And do we really think that we should use all this data that we have? Yes. Do we really think that needs to be done by machines? Yes, because it's cheaper than people. Do we think that personalization is something that we should be doing? Yes. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is the KPIs. So once we've decided this is a vision we're going to pursue and it's got executive sponsorship, we need the right KPIs. And all too often, I see KPIs defeating these projects. So let's just use another example. When robots started welding cars, and I'm a welder, and my boss has said, you need to set these robots up to weld cars. And I'm setting these robots up. I'm thinking, God, this is taking a long time. And I tell my boss, it's taking me so long to set this robot up. I could have welded 2 cars by now. And of course, it's not about welding 3, 4, 5 cars a day. It's about doing 2,000 cars a day. And that's why we're spending the time with the robot. So once we've got the vision, the KPIs need to facilitate the vision. And all too often, I hear things like, it's taking us too long to bring the brand language into compliance. It's like, yeah, but that will pay back because we have this vision that people shouldn't do it. So rather than measure how long it's taking to run a campaign now with this new technology and saying, well, it takes us too long to use these tools to do this now. Instead, it should be how many defects do we have this week, and how do we get 50% fewer defects in 2 weeks' time? How long is it taking us to do a campaign now? And how can we measure the reduction of this campaign setup time by month? This is exactly how factories think, and they put these KPIs up on the factory floor. If you have those sort of measures, and if executives and everybody are incentivized to pursue those measures will be achieved. And before you know it, no one's touching the campaigns, and it'll be way faster than you did before. So the first thing is having the right vision, and the second thing is having the right KPIs. I would say just one thing on the architecture, and I said about bringing these things to compliance on guardrails. I think of, and this may change, but right now I think of these large language models essentially being like utilities and raw materials. I think that's probably going to remain how it is. And these raw materials are extremely powerful, but they are raw materials. We want them to be large scale. We want them to be creative. They're incredibly powerful. Now, sand is a powerful raw material. But if I'm just using it, molding it with my hands, or if I'm sticking it in a castle-shaped plastic box, it's not as useful to humanity at scale as if I put it through machinery and make glass out of it. So tooling can do amazing things with raw materials. So if I'm a human interacting with an AI, give me 10,000 versions of a message. My human capacity is limiting my ability to use this machine. In fact, it's kind of insane to think that, I mean, certainly NVIDIA's stock price is not what it is because we're all just asking questions to ChatGPT to debate our kids. That's not what it is, right? These machines can operate at unbelievable scale, unimaginable scale. Our job is to get out of the way. Our job is to get out of the way and move on to the new things that humans are good at, which is creative, which is innovation, which is thought, which is craft. Okay. So there is, in the case of brand language, where I've been spending some time, there is very good technology now that not only can leverage the creativity, the probabilistic nature of large language models, but can enable them to operate on very controlled guardrails using symbolic names. So what you get is this probabilistic symbolic type architecture, preferably with neural networks as well, that are applying their own learnings about the relationships of data to the output. And you will start to see these neuro-symbolic multi-agent architectures that look very much like the tooling that takes sand and turns it into glass. And when you're thinking about AI that way, I have the utility, the raw material, I need architecture to bring it into control, and then I need KPIs to bring this machine into control, or to serve a vision. And if we all start thinking about it that way, we will initiate projects that succeed and move our business forward.
Yep. So when you talked about KPIs, right, because that is also a key important part of the overall engagement, right? When you were part of Braze, right, back in those days when you were CRO at Braze, you drove growth with KPIs that went beyond opens and clicks, because I'm sure you have heard that opens are like a vanity metrics now, right? Looking into only opens is not going to help brands understand the actual engagement which they are able to deliver. Today, you talk about metrics like experimentation rate and win rate, right? Where the objective is to go further deep. From your perspectives, do marketers even have the right KPIs in place for the new AI era we'll live in? And if yes, right, what would be your recommendation, suggestions to those?
I think that the most interesting part of marketing, and that humans are best at, is figuring out what marketing to do. It's like if we decided that we are only going to message, no, we're going to rate limit our messaging. We're only going to send, no more than 10 messages to an individual a month, just as an whatever. Well, the brand teams will have an opinion as to what that is, and the CRM teams will have an opinion. Also, and I'm sure you hear this, I hear brand teams say, well, those CRM folks aren't doing marketing anyway, they're doing selling. And the CRM people are effectively salespeople who have a quarterly revenue goal. And the brand people are nurturing relationship with the brand, which serves a much longer term objective and relationship with the brand. So there's always this conflict between short-term revenue, longer-term revenue. And should we use one of our 10 messages a month or a brand campaign that's maybe not going to get any click through, we just want to expose people to the brand, or do we want somebody to transact and act right now? Like, so this is what the CMO does. CMO is responsible for deciding what the emphasis is going to be at any given time. But I think that saying, okay, what is the right way to nurture somebody into the brand? What is the right way to develop our relationship with the individual? How can we best get this individual to really understand the value that the brand can provide? If somebody's a high value customer, do we message them a lot or not a lot? What is the experience? Will I take them on? This is the clever stuff. This is the really creative stuff. This is not something that the large language model is going to tell us what to do. Sure, it can go look at all the examples in history of what worked for certain brands at particular points in time, but that's not what is necessarily best for your brand at this point in time to enable you to differentiate. So that's the human stuff. That's where the humans need to be spending time, because it's really hard. No one has an answer to that. But when it comes to, well, we've now decided what messages we're going to send. We know we want to have certain channel capabilities. Really good brands now will have 12 channels that they can use to connect with people on. 12 channels. That's a lot of channels. So if we've got the pipes to engage with people on 12 channels, and we've got the data, we've got decisioning tools that can figure out what and when, we've got the creative tools to figure out the best way of saying it. Okay, now our job is just to figure out how we use this palette of tools based on how we do marketing. So in effect, the technology mustn't be a limiting factor to marketing. In fact, the technology needs to be part of the creative canvas to enable whatever marketing is appropriate to happen.
So yeah, one good point you mentioned here about is what is the major difference between how an human brain would work versus the AI was going to work, right? No matter AI can go look back and review the tons of data, but what a human brain can do, AI is not going to achieve it no matter what. And that's where it's important for humans to make sure that they understand the importance of where to look into and where to not look into, where AI can definitely support us. Thanks, Daniel, for sparing time with us. It was really great going through multiple areas of the overall life cycle marketing, starting from personalization to decisioning, right? Making sure that what actually personalization means. And obviously, the important one was how to differentiate personalization versus merge tag, right? People should come out of that merge tag psychology and think as a personalization as a whole, right? Trying to go further and understand the customer more and more as much as possible, right? Which helps you to define your data in the right way. And the important one, which I'm sure lifecycle marketers would learn, is not to overdo things, right? In terms of message fatigue, right? Because that's where you are killing your subscribers and churning them if you are doing or overdoing things. So thanks for sparing time, Daniel. It was really great having you, and I'm sure all the lifecycle marketers who are hearing this would be able to manage their overall tech stack and lifecycle marketing campaigns in a better way by taking those learnings.
Thank you for inviting me on. It sounds good talking with you.
Thank you, Daniel.